Democrats who loved Ron Paul when he was running against George W. Bush's foreign policy in 2008, but now hate Ron Paul because he's calling out Obama on his George W. Bush-like foreign policy in 2012. And gentlemen, this isn't the first video I've done concerning Hussein Obama's Jekyll and Hyde syndrome concerning foreign policy. It may not be the last, but the videos going across your screen right now are supplements to this video, or you could look at this video as being a supplement to them, vice versa, whatever. The first, I have several issues to go over here. See those videos as well. That will provide also provide other information. Let's begin with this. You remember, of course, when Hussein was running for president in 2008, he indicated that he was going to have a hands-off foreign policy. As George W. Bush campaigned on in 2000, I've heard Ron Paul many times during his speeches say he's running on the foreign policy George W. Bush ran on in 2000. But as soon as Hussein got in office, that changed. Let's start with this, Syria. Here's a statement by Jay Carney on Syria as provided by the White House. Quote, the United States continues to believe that the only way to bring about the change that the Syrian people deserve is for Bashar al-Assad to leave power. The words of the Assad regime have no credibility when they continue to be followed by outrageous and deplorable actions. Only 2 days following the Assad regime's decision to sign the Arab League initiative, they have already flagrantly violated their commitment to end violence and withdraw security forces from residential areas. The United States is deeply disturbed by credible reports that the Assad regime continues to indiscriminately kill scores of civilians and army defectors while destroying homes and shops and arresting protesters without due process. Of course, when if they ever actually had due process in Syria. And it goes on to say it's time for the Syrian people to have universal rights that they deserve. The Assad regime is already facing growing isolation and sanctions that are choking off its resources. We urge Syria's few remaining supporters in the international community to warn Damascus that if the Arab League initiative is once again not fully implemented, the international community will take additional steps to pressure the Assad regime to stop its crackdown. Bashar al-Assad should have no doubt that the world is watching, and neither the international community nor the Syrian people accept his legitimacy. You remember we went into Iraq. Forget whether there were WMDs or not. Forget all that debate, but we went in there for that. Yet here we have the Hussein Obama administration threatening regime change in Syria, yet there's no weapons of mass destruction. So his case for invading Syria would be even flimsier than Bush's case for invading Iraq. Yet, when Obama ran in 2008, this wasn't the way he would have done it. He called us an irritant in Iraq. So are we going to go into Syria and be an irritant there and try to engage in nation building there as we have in Afghanistan and Iraq? So you see, that's just part of it. We're not even on to the main event yet. Moving on, let's go to something that occurred just before the end of 2011. President Hussein Obama was in Asia to declare a Cold War with China. This is Robert McGinnis's words, and I agree. Hopefully the U.S.-China Cold War won't be like the one fought with the Soviet Union that brought the world to the brink of nuclear annihilation and cost trillions of dollars over 60 years. The crux of the conflict is China's attempt to assert its sovereignty over the South China Sea, a resource-rich conduit for roughly $5 trillion in annual global trade, of which $1.2 trillion is American, which U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton declared last year a matter of national interest. And then it goes on. Hussein Obama, while traveling in Asia, fired the first round of the Cold War when he declared the U.S. a Pacific nation, and we intend to play a larger and long-term role in shaping this region and its future. I have directed my national security team to make our presence and missions in the Asia-Pacific a top priority, Hussein said. The region is absolutely vital not only for our economy but also for our national security. And then the President and his representatives unveiled an avalanche of Cold War-like initiatives intended to counter China's influence. This is hilarious. If it wasn't so serious, it would be. The U.S. will increase its military presence in Asia. Obama announced an agreement to permanently station 2,500 Marines in Australia and to increase combat aircraft such as B-52 bombers and aircraft carriers traveling to Australia. This complements 28,000 troops already stationed in South Korea and 50,000 in Japan. Ally Singapore promised to provide basing for U.S. combat ships, and Vietnam invited the U.S. Navy to use the Cam Ranh Bay port for provisioning and repairs. Last Friday, this is back in November, Hussein announced plans to supply 24 refurbished F-16 fighter aircraft to Indonesia. The administration restated its arms commitment to China rival Taiwan, and the administration is considering offering the Philippines a second destroyer. Also last week, Hillary Clinton was in Manila to mark the 60th anniversary of the U.S.-Philippine Mutual Defense Treaty to discuss regional issues, and then she traveled to Thailand to bolster that relationship. I think a better tact would be to foster free trade with these nations. And again, here we have another contradiction. It is not our job, according to the Constitution, and the founders would agree, to get involved in these entangling alliances. It's not our job to police the South China Sea. It's not our job to make sure Egypt has a supposedly democratic government, or Pakistan, or anywhere else. And you can see here Obama is again totally abandoning the foreign policy he ran on to try to antagonize China. The U.S. is not a Pacific nation. If you want the U.S. to be a Pacific nation, foster free trade. Let's get free trade with these nations going. Basing military troops, destroyers there, our Navy, will not do that. It's only going to serve to piss people off, antagonize people, and it'll be a continuance of the foreign policy we've largely had since World War II ended. I should also address this issue. There are many people out there, I'm not going to name names, but they accuse Hussein Obama of being a Zionist, of being in the tank for Israel. The problem is, though, on several occasions he has, as Clinton and George W. Bush did, trying to get Israel to negotiate with these Palestinians, read displaced Arabs, trying to get them to negotiate with these Palestinians and give up land. And Hussein has also made calls on several occasions for Israel to give up the Golan Heights. The problem with that is, if Israel gave up the Golan Heights, they would have a strategic disadvantage to Syria, which is why they took it from Syria in 1967. So if Hussein is such a Zionist, well, if he was, he wouldn't be pushing Israel to give up land. So there is another example of his foreign policy interfering in other issues that are none of our business, wanting Israel to give up the Golan Heights, which is essentially asking Israel to, why don't you guys leave yourselves open for attack? I should also mention as well that Leon Panetta, Hussein's Secretary of Defense, was also very clear that he wants Israel to get to the, as he put it, the damn peace table and give up land. And here's something you may not know. The National Security Strategy, published in May 2010. This is Hussein's National Security Strategy. May 2010 declares, quote, "There should be no doubt the United States of America will continue to underwrite global security." And that means continuing to shovel money into NATO. So when NATO decides they need to bomb an Islamic theocracy, we'll participate in that. And if they decide that nation building is necessary after that, we'll participate in that too, so your dollars will go to that. We will continue to interfere, despite, again, and I'll just keep harping on it, Hussein's rhetoric as he ran for president in 2008, he has totally abandoned that. I'm not sure if the Hussein administration will listen to this, but John Bolton was recently out there saying he wanted regime change in North Korea. So are we going to go into North Korea too? North Korea, Syria. We're out of Iraq. We've still got Afghanistan going, along with all the other countries we send foreign aid to or have troops in. I think we're stretching ourselves way too thin, but North Korea and Syria, are they next? We have this as well. Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood will not recognize Israel under any circumstance. The party's deputy leader, Dr. Rashad Baoumi, told Arabic daily Al Hayat in an interview published right on New Year's Day. In recent Egyptian elections, the Brotherhood's Freedom and Justice Party won 36.3% of the list vote, while the ultra-conservative Salafi al-Nur Party won 28.8%. So we've spent a bunch of time and money, billions and billions, in man-hours and dollars, trying to keep Egypt stable. Yet, after regime change there, Islamist kooks, radicals are being elected. They will not recognize Israel. It's still radicalized. It was completely counterproductive. Are we going to learn? I don't think Obama will. Then we have in Libya, it appears that Libya's new constitution, and this is not set in stone yet, but Sharia law will most likely be implemented there, according to it was their new part. The transitional government leader Mustafa Abdul Jalil made in his keynote speech back in October of 2011. It appears that Sharia law is going to be a major part of Libya's new constitution there. So again, a bunch of money spent there and time for what? So Sharia law could continue to play a greater role, and that will oppress the freedom of people. So maybe in 10, 15 years we can go back into Libya again and put another puppet in there, and then he can drop the hammer on his people. Pakistan's another country we give a whole bunch of money to. Texting is about to get a lot harder in Pakistan. The Pakistani Telecommunications Authority has banned a list of 1,600 obscene words, the majority in English, from being used in text messages, and has instructed wireless service providers in the country to block texts with these words. It is understandable that the morality piece of the Islamic Republic would feel uncomfortable with words like breast and rectum, but an online document that purports to be banned words list includes backdoor, Jesus Christ, harder, Budweiser, idiot, damn, deeper, athlete's foot, and flatulence. PTA spokesman Mohammed Younis told the Guardian newspaper that the ban was necessary to protect children. Nobody would like this happening to their young boy or girl, he said in a bizarre statement. That was quoted from a Wall Street Journal article. Well, the parents are most likely responsible for the children, so if you don't want your children seeing that crap or talking about that crap, then you keep a better eye on their text messaging. So it's just a way for them to control the ignorant masses and suppress freedom and you know, implement their dream society, because they think they can force people to do what they want them to do. So Pakistan, there's another country we give a whole bunch of money to, and they don't give a damn about the freedom of their people. They're oppressive as hell. That is also a waste of time and money. And will Hussein Obama learn from that, or will we continue to send Pakistan money in the future and continue to try to work with them? Because it's a waste of time, in my opinion. Here's a good point brought up by Cato's Malou Innocent concerning intervention into other countries. And this was on the heels of Hussein's trip to the Tonight Show to visit Jay Leno. And she brings this up, and I think this is worthy of mention. For numerous strategic and historical reasons, no American government has intervened militarily in countries such as Algeria, Jordan, or Yemen. We've intervened in Yemen, but not in defense of human rights. In Saudi Arabia, a longtime U.S. partner, homosexuals, apostates, and drug smugglers can be sentenced to execution, sometimes by beheading. In extreme cases, the convict's body is crucified in public, and yet the same U.S. government that offers unflinching support to the Saudi kingdom led from behind for an intervention in Libya to stop an alleged massacre in Benghazi in neighboring Egypt. Meanwhile, for 29 years, the U.S. government showered former President Hosni Mubarak with praise despite his widespread use of torture and systemic repression of political prisoners. Washington also continues to support and arm the regime in Bahrain, which deliberately kills unarmed protesters and oppresses its people. To promote human rights in Libya while supporting some of the world's most heinous tyrannies may reflect America's geopolitical preferences, but it makes a mockery of human rights and reveals an enormous discrepancy between what America claims to be doing and what it actually does. As much as Obama and his defenders want to strut around and promote their triumph over Gaddafi, People in the Middle East and around the world are well aware of this discrepancy. Such policies are not only abhorrent but also detrimental to America's long-term interests. Advancing liberty is a painful and arduous process, but it can be done and often independent of U.S. government efforts, end quote. I think that's all that needs to be said. Why haven't we just intervened in all these other countries? It's politically based, a lot of it. And even when we do intervene, most of the time it turns into a train wreck. In our last two pieces of business here, I disagree with 99.9% of what Code Pink has to say, but they even gave Hussein a pink fail. They say Barack Obama during his campaign promised to end the war in Iraq, close Guantanamo, and end torture, among other commitments for peace. American voters have recognized the costs of the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, and Libya, lives lost, international cooperation thwarted, and tax dollars squandered. Obama, war is so over. Congratulations, you earned the first pink fail, end quote. So it appears even Coach Stink has, they're not feeling the love for Hussein. They need to come out and endorse a third-party candidate, though, if they're going to be serious about it. Come out and specifically endorse, or maybe just say none of them are worthy of it. We're not endorsing anybody. Maybe none of the above. I would appreciate it if they would do that. At least they're being honest to their own mission. They're not covering up for Obama like some Democrats are, who were angry at Bush's foreign policy, and then as soon as Obama did basically the same thing in many areas, in fact even overstepping what Bush did, they kind of turned a blind eye to that. You know who you are. And lastly, we've got many Republican voters obviously are angry at Ron Paul for his foreign policy is one of the things, but Doug Weed has had an article where he goes over some of Ronald Reagan's, doesn't necessarily all pertain to foreign policy, Reagan and Ron Paul's statements, and they're actually pretty similar. Reagan said the Federal Reserve is answerable to no one. You know what Ron Paul thinks of the Federal Reserve. On May 31st, 1968, Ronald Reagan said, if this globe is to live in peace and prosper, it is to embrace all the possibilities of technological revolution, then nations must renounce once and for all the right to an expansionist foreign policy. Peace between nations must be an enduring goal, not a tactical stage in a continuing conflict. Reagan said this on December 16th, 1988. We know too what happened in the Brezhnev era: greater expansionism, Afghanistan, economic decay, and overwhelming corruption. A greater and greater burden on the peoples of the Soviet Union, on all peoples of the world. Friends, so even Ronald Reagan's foreign policy is not so divorced from what Ron Paul is running on. So, and the Gipper still resonates with a lot of Republicans, so you should take that into account. And that's it for now. Hussein Obama, as I've documented several times, has completely abandoned the foreign policy he ran on in the 2008 campaign. It's not working for, as I've documented in several videos, counterproductive. It's completely failed. We need an about face. Have a nice day. And don't thank me now.